Have you ever felt that your creative well has run dry? But what if I told you that inspiration is all around you, even in the most unexpected places? In today's video, we're going to explore some offbeat methods to spark some fresh ideas, from reimagining everyday phrases to turning a simple stranger's glance into a compelling story. Ideation is a skill that you can learn. It's not reserved for musical geniuses. So stick around, because you might just see your world in a whole new light by the end of this video. Hey songwriters, before we start, my name is Celine. If we haven't met yet, I've been songwriting now for 30 years. And idea generation is something I've never had a problem with, unless you count having too many ideas, because that's definitely become a problem for me at some point or another. So today, I'm going to break down some of the more offbeat ways in which I generate ideas for new songs. Let's get into it. Now, I know I don't have to tell you that inspiration isn't confined to a notebook or a notes app. It's in the world around you, whether that's a bustling new city, hiking in some woodlands, or diving headfirst into a new book or movie. Living life fills your creative cup. Imagine you're in a brand new city on a rainy day and you notice a gorgeous little cafe that you can sneak into to get out of the rain. Or perhaps you're on a faraway trip and you're watching the most gorgeous sunset. The details of experiences just like this can be the foundations of your next song. It doesn't need to involve a huge trip. A quote from a movie or the first line of your favourite book can be the source of inspiration that you need to kick off a new song. I wrote a song called Salt in My Eyes not so long ago, which was kind of a mashup of watching the movie Castaway and recently reading about how the author of Robinson Crusoe came up with the ideas for that story. And what I did, I took those elements of beaches, sand, fire, sea, and all that kind of stuff, and I moulded it into an idea as I was watching the film Castaway, believe it or not. So while I was watching the film, I had this idea to turn this into a song, and I immediately jotted that down on my notes app on my phone, later on transferring it into my songwriting notebook. Carrying a small notebook or using your notes app is ideal for noting down these unexpected things that you observe in your world around you. I am forever jotting down an unusual conversation I've overheard, or taking photographs even of buildings or places that I see that kind of inspire me. Taking photographs with your phone is actually a really great way of collecting ideas and inspiration. I actually do a lot of songwriting based off photographs that I take. I often go through my photo reel on my iPhone during my weekly reflection sessions on a Sunday afternoon and kind of deleting off all the rubbish that people send me via WhatsApp, but also moving some things into an album specifically for song ideas. It's actually a really good way of adding to the notes I make in my notebook by taking photographs, and I get to see and remember how I felt when I saw that image and kind of put that and roll that into emotions in songs. Now, I'm sure you already know that language is the playground for creative writers, especially songwriters. And sometimes all we need to do is take a familiar phrase or idiom and switch it around a little bit to create something interesting and brand new. So thinking about these phrases or idioms, as they're often called, and twisting them in a new way can open and unlock a world of creativity for your songs. For example, what happens if you were to flip a well-known phrase on its head? Let's use the example of every cloud has a silver lining. What would happen if we completely turned that on its head by now saying every silver lining has a cloud? It could become a story about finding joy, only to be reminded that everything comes with baggage and not everything is purely positive. It gives a new way of using something familiar, but changing it to mean something different. The beauty of this is there are so many everyday conversational phrases or idioms that you can use and flip them around to spark new song ideas. One of my most favourite songs I've ever written was sparked by a friend of mine sharing something on Facebook that I think said, "Your heart thinks a lot quicker than your brain," or something along those lines. And I immediately screenshot it. I like that kind of context that your heart thinks quickly and sometimes it takes a little bit longer for your brain to kind of catch up. So you're thinking more with your heart in the initial moment, but later on perhaps your brain can kind of rationalize it better. I love that idea. So then about a month or so later, I wrote the song Without Me. It's a song about leaving somebody and knowing that you're leaving them hurting in the moment and they can't see that the reasons that you need to break up are the best reasons. So the chorus became, your heart thinks quicker than your mind, so maybe it needs a little more time. So forgiveness can remember my name, and you will be yourself once again without me. So using these well-known phrases and words and using mental gymnastics to kind of flip them around all over the place really does help improve your knowledge of language and how you can use those in your lyric writing. It's actually an exercise that you can do when you've got very little time on your hands, and we all live very busy lives these days, and finding time for writing a whole song doesn't happen on a daily basis. But I'm a strong believer in doing something every day towards your goals as a songwriter. So finding ways that you can be songwriting without having to spend the time writing an entire song is something I highly advocate for all songwriters. Sometimes your daily frustrations are more than just a bad day. They can be a spark waiting to create a fire in your songwriting. So how does that work? Well, when something gets really under my skin, which I'm sure you'll agree happens quite a lot these days, I channel that into some free writing and journaling and I rant it out. It's actually something that I found incredibly helpful when trying to settle into a better journaling habit, because sometimes I didn't know what to write about, so ranting out all my frustrations and angers was a really great way to get my creative juices flowing and get my pen moving on the paper. It was actually something I learned from writer and journalist Poe Bronson, and he said whenever he gets writer's block, he just sits down and writes about what makes him angry at the moment. It's exactly how I use it, getting my frustrations out with a pen and paper. I'm not entirely sure how I would feel about typing angrily, but certainly writing angry really helps me kind of square it all away in my head and gets those thoughts and feelings out. And I'm actually writing, and once you're already writing, that momentum allows you to keep going. I spend about 10 to 15 minutes, about 4 or 5 times a week now, over morning coffee, free writing in my songwriting journal. Journaling is a habit that I really advocate for all songwriters to make that daily or very regular habit of writing something freely without censorship to get your lyric writing and songwriting chops up to speed. It's really benefited my songwriting, and kind of getting your emotions out onto paper can not only clear your head, help with your own mental health, but then reflecting on that and going back and seeing what you've written, I've often found some wonderful nuggets that have led to some new songs. Quick side note, I have got so many journaling prompts and creative ideas to use journaling as a songwriter that have quite honestly developed my songwriting and kept me sane over the years. I'd love to share them with you if you're interested, so drop a comment and let me know, and I can make that video sooner rather than later. Okay, so on to the next way in which you can create ideas for songs. People watching is one of my favourite pastimes, without fail. Have you ever done it? Every stranger can carry an untold story. The lady in the coffee shop that came in and then left really quickly. The gentleman on the train wearing an important suit but's got cheap and dirty shoes. They all tell different stories, and when you don't know the facts, we can use creative license to create our own backstory for that person. So for this one, I'm inviting you to look at the people around you that you know nothing about and create their backstory. What brought them to this moment? What do they do for a living? Do they like music? Where do they spend their holidays? Who are they outside the brief glimpse that you can see right in front of you? And to go even further, you can look at the emotions around the situations, the emotions you can see in their face, tiny details, specific information about that person that you notice. This is a lyric writing trick that I think is mastered so well by the songwriter Leonard Cohen. He often can tell us some very, very minute specifics about somebody or a situation, which also gives us information about the big picture. And I think his song Famous Blue Raincoat is the best example I can think of for this. The lines, "The last time I saw you, you looked so much older. Your famous blue raincoat was torn at the shoulder." This tells us so much about the person that Leonard Cohen is writing about. It gives us those specifics of a torn coat, which tells us more about that person than you think. It suggests longevity. They've had that coat for a long time. Why have they not changed that coat? If I had a rip in the shoulder of my coat, I would probably change that. It invites questions about the characters, as well as giving us the idea of that the person is looking so much older, so it shows a passage of time. There are so much details in that short section of lyric. It is absolutely an observational skill that Leonard Cohen really, really does master. And one of the phrases that I really like to explain this even better is, "Don't look at the tree, climb the sycamore." So when I'm observing a stranger, I create their backstory to build an idea about who this person might be. Quite likely they are not, but what they might be or what I would like them to be. I did this myself very recently in a song I've titled Grace. It's about an older lady who I see on a regular basis, and she walks up and down the central white lines of the roads here in Nairobi, selling car drivers and passers-by mangoes. And I took some of those details that I know and I embellished them and I added to them about where she's come from and why she's doing what she does to make money and how she lives and what her relationships are like. And this is something that I believe sharpens our observational skills and lets us create deeper narratives about characters and situations, which can only add to our songwriting. So I mentioned carrying a small notebook or using a notes app on your phone earlier in the video, and I just want to expand on that a little bit more here. Being able to capture those ideas whenever you have them with your notebook, with your notes app, with a voice note, with your phone's camera is an essential part of becoming a more fruitful and prolific songwriter. Even the most brilliant of ideas can vanish over time, and I'm terrible for forgetting everything, apart from song lyrics from approximately 1994, where I can remember without even thinking. But when I want to remember something important, I have to write it down, take a photo, screenshot it, and then I've got it then. I will never be able to forget it. And you might prefer a digital app, you might prefer a traditional notebook, you may prefer sticky post-it notes that you can stick on your fridge to remind you of these things that you want to write. Whatever it is personal to you, and whatever works for you is the best thing you can do. And honestly, I can't stress this enough, that you can have all the best ideas in the world, but without a way of capturing them for later, because we all know we can't just stop and write a song whenever we have an idea. You've got to capture them for later, and in doing so, it really does promote your songwriting. I've been known to use the voice notes app on my phone to put down some quick guitar parts or chord progressions. I've sang into it. I've also used it as a dictaphone to get some ideas out while I'm driving, because I can't obviously operate a guitar while I'm behind the wheel. Because I honestly think that some songwriters believe that they have to sit around and wait for some muse or siren or higher songwriting power to strike them with inspiration so they can sit and write a song. I don't believe in that. I believe that I need to go out and find my inspiration. I want to put myself in the way of inspiration, so when it comes, it hits me and I can record it, so when I sit down at a later time to write a song on my terms, not on some higher power muse terms, I've got all the ideas I've collected there and then to choose from. I think it was Pablo Picasso that said, inspiration does exist, but it has to find you working. So for me, having a bank of ideas to choose from, so when I want to sit down and I want to write a song, I can do so at any point. I want to be creative when I want to be creative and not dictated to by some flash of inspiration at 3 a.m. or when I'm in the shower. I control my creativity, and by doing so, it has enabled me to write so many more songs. I mean, I love the idea, the romanticism of the muse inspiring a song at 3 a.m. and the fairy tale side of that does have a kind of poetic ring to it, but actually, I want to be able to choose when I want to write a song. And I've got a bank of ideas, and I'm never stuck with a blank page or without an idea, so I can sit and write a song whenever I feel like it. Thanks for joining me on this creative journey of where ideas can come from. If you found any of these kind of things useful, I would really appreciate a like and perhaps subscribe for some more videos in the future. But if you think that I've missed something specific, please do let me know in the comments and I'll see you down there to chat about it. But before you go, check out this video. It's where I get a little bit controversial about writer's block and how I've beaten it for good. See you in the next one.